Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS for the fifth race of the 2018 International GTOpen season. This is the third event of the year and the Spa circuit always produces some of the best racing that we enjoy over the course of the season as we are approaching the midway point of the campaign, but still a lot of racing to go. Well, it's a warm welcome from Ben Evans as you join us on a slightly unexpectedly sunny afternoon here in the Ardennes. The weather forecast, as we arrived at the track this morning, suggested thunderstorms around about now, but fortunately that seems to have been pushed back into a little bit later in the day. And so, although it's breezy, it is nice and bright and perfect conditions to enjoy. Promises to be some very, very close racing from the International GTOpen. It was David Perel who qualified on pole position this morning, one of the three Rinaldi Racing entries here this weekend, and that is the Christian Hook Steve Parrow car, which bookends the field, and Perel pushing incredibly hard through his qualifying laps to share the front row with the championship leader. That's the Luzic Racing Ferrari of Michael Mack, reunited once more this weekend with Alessandro Pierguidi. But some work clearly underway on the Luzic Racing Ferrari, the front panel of the car being removed. I hope that's just a last-minute setup adjustment rather than anything more serious. You can just see that on the right-hand side of the picture. So Perel was in really scintillating form in qualifying, using every inch of the road to extract the maximum from the car and setting a very, very impressive lap time in the car that he shares with Vadim Kogay. For championship leader Michael Mack, a couple of race victories already to his credit this year, alongside a very solid weekend in Paul Ricard. The Luzic Racing team expanded to 3 cars this weekend with the addition of Marco Ciocci and Matt Griffin to support the Championship Challenge. Richard Gonda in the Senkia Motorsport BMW entering the championship this weekend, and he is partnered alongside Joel Eriksson. And Gonda, no stranger to the paddock from his exploits in the Euro Formula Open. Very rapid in qualifying. Rick Breukers and Riccardo Agostini share the number 25 Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. It was Riccardo Agostini who got precariously close to the wall at Eau Rouge this morning, en route to 4th on the grid. 5th to Lorenzo Berau de Viega, at the wheel of the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW that he shares with Juan Cruz Alvarez. And Lorenzo Berau de Viega leaving it till late in the session to set the time. And I just wonder if the Teo Marti Motorsport team generally have got quite a good tyre situation for the remainder of the weekend. Last year's champion Giovanni Venturini lines up in 6th place in the second of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans. Venturini never quite seemed to get the track positions that lap times when he wanted to. AM-class pole going to Rinat Salikov in the expanded 3rd Rinaldi Racing entry for the weekend, and Salikov, uniquely in the field, is doing the whole race single-handedly. Alberto Di Folco, the 2nd of the Pro-Am qualifiers, in 8th place in the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan that he shares with Stefano Constantini. 9th on the grid for the winner last time out in Paul Ricard, that's Andrea Montermini. Daniele Diamato in the RS Racing Ferrari, and Montermini and Diamato 3rd in the championship as a result of their exploits in Paul Ricard. But another triumph is going to need a few things, I think, to fall Montermini's way. The 3rd of the Pro-Am qualifiers was Toby Sowry in the Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan. Sowry, who has been a very impressive qualifier all the way through the course of the season, and he and Giuseppe Cipriani will be in the hunt for a Pro-Am podium. Fernando Reis and Damiano Fioravanti have always raced well this year, but qualifying sometimes hasn't gone the way of the Ombra Racing duo, and that was the case this morning. Fernando Reis, 11th place, but he lost a couple of good times to track infringements, and I think could go well in race conditions. Another driver who lost a good time for a track infringement was Bradley Ellis in the Optima Motorsport Audi that he shares with Ollie Wilkinson. They'll be hoping to be on the Pro-Am podium. Marco Ciocci and Matt Griffin then, the expanded 3rd Luzic Racing Ferrari. Ciocci and Griffin quick drivers, but a fair amount to do from 13th on the grid. Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda scored a victory in Paul Ricard, their second in the championship. For Saravia, there is only one way to go, and that is forward. Large field this weekend, and so much strength in depth throughout the pack. It really is hard to pick a winner from throughout the field. But certainly for Michael Mack and Sandro Pierguidi, they will be hoping to stretch the field early on. Here's a look then at what happened in Paul Ricard. It's very, very busy throughout the field. Maybe pushing it a little bit too hard in the early stage of the first race. Andrea Montermini tipping one of the Imperiale Lamborghini Huracans into a spin. Fernando Reis and Damiano Fioravanti in great form as the heavens opened late on. The race finished under the safety car, giving Saravia and Fran Rueda their first victory of the season, to the delight of the Teo Martin Motorsport team. Race 2, and it was Thomas Jaeger in the Lettner Racing Mercedes who led away. As once more we retreated to another thrilling battle. Daniele Diamato and Andrea Montermini were the men to watch as they carved through the field, with Montermini having to get a little bit aggressive late on, but that was enough to give the RS Racing Ferrari team their first victory of the season. Again, take a little bit of ground out of Michael Mack at the top of the championship. So in terms of the championships, then Michael Mack leads the way, and he's 13 points clear of Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda, with Montermini and Diamato just 2 points adrift from there. Fernando Reis and Damiano Fioravanti fourth in the standings. Look at how they line up in full, with David Perel and Michael Mack on the front row of the grid. Then Richard Gondra in the Senkia BMW alongside Riccardo Agostini, the first of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans. Lorenzo Beraldo Viega and Giovanni Venturini, a very strong third row. On to row 4, Rinat Salikov, the AM pole sitter, and Alberto Di Folco in the Target Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Andrea Montermini and Toby Sowry may well progress from the 5th row of the grid. Row 6, Fernando Reis and Bradley Ellis, another two drivers whom you'd expect to see being upwardly mobile. Marco Ciocci and Andres Saravia, I think, will both be disappointed to be on row 7, as they have got Gia Maria and Antonio Coimbra on row 8 in AM qualifying. Wolfgang 11 down in the heart. The tension just beginning to mount in the pit boxes. Sandro Pierguidi and Matt Griffin waiting for their chance in the second half of the race, because there are some combinations that will be quick throughout, others that will start quickly, and there may be fade later on, and others that will come on strong through the second half of proceedings. It's Vadim Koge who will take over from David Perel in the pole-sitting Ferrari. Sandro Pierguidi and Matt Griffin in the middle of a very, very busy run, particularly as they have got the more 24-hour commitments to look forward to. So the grid is cleared. The car's about to be released onto the formation lap for the 5th race of the Euro Formula, or rather the International GTOpen season, as you join us on a sunny afternoon in the Ardennes. It's a rolling start, so they will proceed behind the pace car for the final sighting of the 7-kilometre circuit before the lights on the gantry will change. That'll be the last towards La Source for the first time. It's a 70-minute race. The pit stop between the 28th and 42nd minute, and they've got their allocation of Michelin tyres to manage through the course of the weekend as well. So the green Ferrari of David Perel leading away on to the formation lap. So there are 3 championships in the International GTOpen. We've gone through the points position for the overall championship, and the Pro-Am championship. Fabrizio Crestani and Miguel Ramos lead the way in that they are 7 points clear of Michele Rugolo and Alex Hunter West, with then tied in 3rd place is Marcello Hahn in the Drivex Mercedes, and also Tom Onslow-Cole and Valentin Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Mercedes. And in the AM Championship, Alexandra Fraquina and Martin Conrad leading the way coming into this weekend. Unfortunately, the team having to withdraw after qualifying this morning. So that is going to give a chance to the other AM pairings, or indeed sole entries in the case of Rinat Salakov, to potentially make a little bit of ground up in the AM Championship. So the field heading out of Radion down the Kemmel Straight. And this Spa-Francorchamps circuit offers plenty of overtaking opportunities for these GT3 cars. The long drag down the Kemmel Straight, if you're up close behind your rival on the exit of Eau Rouge, that will be less easy to achieve an overtake. And Wolfgang Reep and the Aston Martin also supported this weekend by the Belgian footballer Jan Vertonghen. Couldn't be here, of course, because he has got commitments in the Formula World Cup starting next week. But we'll be cheering the car on nonetheless, I'm sure. It's in towards Pouon. This double left-hander, it's certainly brought out drivers over the years, particularly going back a couple of years ago, that gigantic accident involving Fernando Moyet in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. This is the challenge with Spa-Francorchamps. It's an immensely satisfying circuit to drive on, lots of undulations and high-speed corners, but it really can bite. So the last couple of cars proceeding on their way. The Rinaldi Racing Ferrari was the casualty yesterday. Christian Hook and Steve Parrow, the team, though, doing a great job in getting the car repaired overnight. So there's 26 of them ready to take the start of this first race of the weekend. Turning through the Paul Frere now, then out to Stavelot on towards Blanchimont. That's where they'll start to bunch up side by side, getting ready for the rolling start. The qualifying this morning has given us a really slightly unusual complexion to the grid, in that we've got several of the usual suspects right at the front of the grid, and then some very, very strong, slightly unexpected performances from the likes of Rinat Salakov and Alberto Di Fulco, and then some more of our potential race winners down towards the lower reach of the top 10 and even just beyond it. And so that is going to lead to, I'd imagine, plenty of on-track action, but also the teams having to be really quite savvy with pit stop strategy and the like. Field all bunching up now through Blanchimont, beginning to form up side by side. This is when tension will begin to mount, and the pace car has certainly taken them round at a relatively steady rate as well. So they won't have had all that much opportunity to maybe get as much heat into the Michelin tire as they'd have liked. It's going to be very, very busy into La Source for the first time. Field, they're making an absolutely magnificent sight, bunched up row upon row, getting ready for this fifth race of the International GTOpen season to get underway. Field picking their way through the chicane. It's then going to be the responsibility of David Perel to pace the field until the lights on the gantry change. We're about to go racing in Spa, and away we go now as the field accelerate towards La Source for the first time, and it's moving 3-4 wide at the front of the field as Perel leads the way. It's very congested behind, everybody jostling for position. Fortunately, no rotation. It's Andrea Montermini who's gone around, and he tangled with Fernando Reis, and there's lots of debris on the circuit. The RS Racing Ferrari should rejoin. It's our in-car Cameron Montermini as well. So he gets the power down and gets back underway. Everybody else climbing out of Radion for the first time, and along the Kemmel Straight as Michael Matt looking to try and overhaul David Perel. The pair of them go wheel to wheel as they get on the brakes into Les Combes. Perel looks to fight it, holds the inside line, forces Mack out a little bit wide. That opens the door to Richard Gonda. There's also been a really good first lap from Bradley Ellis. He is well up there in the mix as Miguel Ramos trying to pick his way past Kang Ling. As down towards the Bruxelles hairpin, it's Perel from Matt, Gonda, Agostini, then Rinat Salakov and Bradley Ellis, we are in car with Andres Saravia, who is just up behind Alberto Di Folco. They're busy battling over 9th and 10th position. And it's Salikov who's lost out, as it's Venturini who's jumped up ahead of Bradley Ellis. As the field plunged down through Pouhon for the first time. No change from how they qualified for the top 4 positions. A little bit of shuffling going on behind us. Lorenzo Beirao de Viega taking his turn to try and overhaul the Russian Rinat Salikov, who kicks up the dust as they turn through Fania. Creates a little bit of a dust screen for those behind the save. Going for the BMW of Lorenzo Beirao de Viega as he turns into the core Paul Frere, but they're all still running as they blast out of Stavolo on towards Blanchimont for the first time. The first gap in the traffic is Antonio Coimbra down in 14th position. Everybody else pretty much running as ones. Lorenzo Beirao de Viega looks to try and line up the move on Rinat Salikov as they accelerate out of Blanchimont. Di Folco runs very wide as well. And that might just open the door to Andres Saravia as the race leaders all on the brakes through the chicane. No change inside the top 10. Toby Sauer in 11th, just ahead of Marco Ciocci. Oh, and there is a problem. Oh dear, and Bradley Ellis has gone around. The Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs possibly have made contact with each other. One of them is pointing in the wrong direction and appears to have picked up a fair degree of damage. That is Lorenzo Beirao de Viega. Andres Saravia continuing on his way. Didn't quite see how that started, but the end of it is potentially quite a few damaged cars, and now the top 10 has really been blasted apart in terms of track position. Lots of gaps appearing at the front of the field. Oh no, and that is hopefully more cosmetic than anything too substantially internal for Lorenzo Beirao de Viega. If nothing else, he's going to have a job to see his way back to the pits. As at the front of the field, Mikael Mack applying the pressure to David Perel. Richard Gonda looking to join in that scrap as well. As Andres Saravia has got Antonio Coimbra, Tim Verbeek, Kang Ling all queuing up behind him. And Ling looking to make the move on the Aston Martin. Elbows the Aston Martin side through the right-hander. Front of the field, meanwhile, plunging downhill towards Pouhon. Giovanni Venturini tucked up behind him. Pirelli Racing teammate Riccardo Agostini as they fight over 4th and 5th. And there's the gap back to Rinat Salikov. Miguel Ramos has also found his way past the Aston Martin that got pushed out wide. Now Valentin Pierberg possibly taking his turn in the silver and white SPS Automotive Mercedes to try and challenge the yellow and white Aston Martin. Now here is another look at the start. So they charged towards La Source. There was a real haul towards the inside. There you see the Optimum Motorsport Audi, Bradley Ellis really jostling to the inside. It was just on the exit then, Fernando Reis and Andrea Montermini that had that coming together. At the front of the field, Perel doing a good job to fend off his rivals. And there's the tag between the Ombra Lamborghini, just almost in slow motion, turning the RS Racing Ferrari around. And it was Rinat Salikov who tagged into a spin Bradley Ellis, and then Alberto Di Folco just caught with Lorenzo Beirao de Viega and Fran Rueda. Nothing that either of those three drivers could do in the face of an Audi pointing in the wrong direction. So a fair degree of frustration, not least because certainly in that second incident, arguably the cars that came off the worst were far from the instigators. They're all more or less up and running, with the exception possibly of Lorenzo Beirao de Viega, which is a great pity for he and Juan Cruz Alvarez. Hopefully, though, the damage to that car isn't too severe. Headlights ablaze for Rinat Salikov, leading the AM class 6th overall, with now Toby Sauer behind him. Alberto Di Folco necessarily slowed in that sandwich between the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. Marco Ciocci up to 9th, then Raffaele Gianmaria in 10th, the two experienced Italians steering clear of the early dramas and now steadily beginning their climb up the order. But still very much in the early stages as David Perel trying to break away at the front of the field. The top 10 separated by 9.3 seconds. certainly that incident through the chicane at the end of the first lap, doing enough to split the front of the pack up a little bit. Teo Martin, the principal Teo Martin Motorsport, frustration of two of his front-running cars being caught up in that. Andres Saravia survives in 11th place. Got a fair bit of track position to try and make up there. Indeed is Saravia. He's seen off the immediate threat, though, from Kang Ling. That's Antonio Coimbra and Tim Verbeek next along in the queue. To the front of the field, accelerating out with Stavelo on through Blanchimont. Really high-speed section of the circuit. As Giovanni Venturini just starting to try and ask a few questions of teammate Riccardo Agostini. Now, the last thing they want to do is trip over each other and have any sort of an incident, but at the same time, Venturini doesn't want to be delayed if he feels he is a little bit quicker and could do something about getting involved in the fight for the top three. Fernando Reis, meanwhile, recovering as he jinks to the inside of Andre Lewandowski. Bradley Ellis also looking to try and make up some ground in the Optimum Audi. And just behind them is Andrea Montermini as well, the RS Racing Ferrari, not having sustained any damage. As Ellis looks to the inside of the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini, here is Montermini. That last lap for Andrea Montermini was a 2 minutes 22.5 versus a 2 minutes 19.2. And the fastest lap of the race for David Perella's. Here comes Giovanni Venturini trying to look round the outside of teammate Riccardo Agostini. He's made it work. So Venturini up into 4th position, and now he's released. See what he can do about the Senkia Motorsport BMW of Richard Gonda in 3rd place. So lots of battles just beginning to come to fruition, but for Giovanni Venturini and the Imperial Racing team, Paul Ricard was such a frustrating weekend because of cars just being caught in other people's incidents by and large, and nothing really went their way. Meanwhile, Montermini elbowing his way past Andre Lewandowski. Lewandowski leaving it pretty late to shut the door, by which point Montermini was directly alongside him. The Lamborghini Huracan taking evasive action. So now this is quite interesting in terms of the complexion of the race, because Richard Gonda and Joel Eriksson in the Senkia BMW in 3rd place, they do not have any additional time in the pits in terms of success seconds, unlike many of the cars that are racing around them. So that could be a battle well worth watching. Meanwhile, Alberto Di Folco trying to close up on to Toby Sowry, Marco Ciocci and Raffaele Gianmaria just behind them. They're all beginning to converge onto the tail of Rinat Salikov as well. This is the fight for 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. Andres Saravia in 11th place, not too far adrift either. Flash the headlights from Alberto Di Folco. Toby Sowry looking to latch onto the tail of Rinat Salikov with 10 minutes into the race. Perel leads the way, 1.5 seconds clear of Michael Mack. Richard Gonda further 1.3 seconds back. And then Giovanni Venturini, now he's in clear air, trying to do something about the BMW up the road ahead of him, with teammate Riccardo Agostini looking to stay with him. Then it's this gaggle of cars all trying to catch up to Rinat Salikov, headed by the 2 Lamborghini Huracans. Target Racing Lamborghini of Alberto Di Folco and Stefano Constantini immediately on the pace upon entering the championship in Paul Ricard, as down towards Pouhon. Michael Mack a little bit adrift of the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, but for David Perel, he is a little bit quicker than Vadim Koge, who'll take over from him in the mid-race pit stops, and therefore he knows he needs to try and build as much of a buffer as possible to give Koge the best opportunity to claim the Pro-Am class victory. Giovanni Venturini, meanwhile, in clear air. potentially going to do his personal best lap of the race. Whether or not he's able to do anything, though, about reeling in Richard Gonda, we shall find out. Gonda partnered this weekend with a very promising young Swedish driver, Joel Eriksson. As I say, the maths at the moment are potentially working out in favour of the Senkia Motorsport BMW pairing, but there is obviously a long way to go as David Perel accelerates out of the chicane to complete lap of Sari. Very late on the brakes in the Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan. He's got this queue behind him. At the moment, everybody just playing a little bit of a watching and waiting game. There's a lot of racing to go. And nothing to be gained by taking any undue risks in the early stages of the race. So for the 6th time, past the old pit lane into Eau Rouge, then climbing uphill out of Radion on to the Kemmel Straight. Marco Ciocci always looks spectacular at the wheel of the Ferrari. At the moment, it's all fairly evenly matched amongst the top 10. Nobody able to particularly take any time out of any of their rivals. Nobody actually able to build any gaps. The exception being the race leader, David Perel, actually, who set another fastest lap, a 2 minutes 18.9, now 2 seconds clear of Mikkel Mack. Perel turns into Pouhon. As we go in car with Andrea Montoni. He's right up behind Marcello Hahn in the Drivex Mercedes. Montoni might fancy we did fancy a look into the Bruxelles hairpin. Marcello Hahn didn't fancy giving him a position, moved across and covered the line off. So then into this sequence of left-handers, and Montoni trying if he can to push Marcello Hahn offline. But the Drivex Mercedes, always a very well-sorted car. Marcello Hahn just doing exactly what he needs to as Montoni latches onto his tail. There's this train behind them, Alex West, Fernando Reis and Andre Lewandowski, all part of this squabble of 2. Marcello Hahn just a little bit wide on the way into Fagna, but that is something that's easily defendable for the Brazilian because there's nothing that Montoni can particularly do. It's not a passing place. And the Mercedes is pretty potent in a straight line, and therefore Andrea Montoni needs to really carry a fair amount more momentum out of Stavelot for the run to Blanchimont. But already the gap between them just opens out by a couple of car lengths as Fernando Reis goes around the outside of Alexander West. So Reis gains the position in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Alexander West slips down to 21st place. But West and Rugolo, as they've done with devastating effects often this year, very good at playing the long game. Seeing where they're going to be at the conclusion of 70 minutes. Renat Salakov has got a 10-second penalty for causing a collision to be added to his race time. Salakov currently 6th overall. There's Montoni again looking to try and line up the move on Marcello Hahn as they arrive into Eau Rouge, and the Ferrari just picking up the throttle a fraction of a second earlier as they climb up out of the hill. And this is Montoni's best opportunity thus far as he looks to draw alongside the Drivex Mercedes. Headlights ablaze though for Marcello Hahn. As he and Montoni run alongside each other down the Kemmel Straight. And Montoni able to execute pretty much a textbook passing manoeuvre by the time they arrive into Les Combes. Now he can get his head down, set off in pursuit of Bradley Ellis and Valentin Pierberg. That's the next scrap, which is a couple of seconds or so up the road through the Bruxelles hairpin. And there you can see Bradley Ellis trying to latch on to Valentin Pierberg. He's not too far adrift from him at all. Immediately, though, Fernando Reis onto terms with Marcello Hahn. Hahn He's got the Rapid Alam Kader waiting to take over at mid-race. He doesn't need to fight this too hard with Fernando Reis, but he wants to, because why not? It's for position and it's fun. Takes the similar line to Fania that he did a lap ago. It's going to give Fernando Reis maybe the opportunity to look to challenge. Or running out a little bit wide there, Marcelo Hahn just made the slight mistake. It's the core pull Frere, and that could really hurt Hahn, in fact, for this run along towards Blanchimont, because whilst Fernando Reis is in the pro class, the car right behind him, Alexander West, is a potential championship rival in the Pro-Am class. And so Hahn really now has to work to keep the Luzic Racing Ferrari behind him. As Valentin Pierberg takes the tight entry to the chicane. No change in the order in the group behind. Bradley Ellis flashes the headlights at the Optima Motorsport Audi. West doesn't flash his headlights at Marcelo Hahn, but he does. Oh, and he looks for the move, and there's contact into La Source. And West saw a hole, and he went for it at the last minute. Marcelo Hahn maybe didn't see that he was there. It was certainly not optimistic and late move. And unfortunately, the cars coming together, and it's the Drivex Mercedes which gets turned around. Hopefully neither car sustaining too much in the way of damage now has been sought out here. Toby Sarri has lost 2 places to Alberto Di Folco and Marco Ciocci. Didn't quite see what happened, but we've seen the end result, which is Di Folco and Ciocci released. Now here is, look, Andrea Montermini running very wide in the RS Racing Ferrari. Just a wheel onto the AstroTurf. And then waiting for an appropriate juncture to rejoin. This is the move from West. You can see why he went for it, but the unfortunate outcome is a rotation for Marcelo Hahn. It's Hahn's team manager has been summoned to race control with immediate effect. So the order is David Prell leads the way, Michael Mack in second, Richard Gondra is third, Giovanni Venturini fourth, Riccardo Agostini fifth, Rinat Salakov in sixth, Alberto Di Folco seventh, Marco Ciocci in eighth, Toby Sarri in ninth, Raffaele Giammaria in 10th, 11th place the car we're currently watching, Andres Saravia, Matteo Martin Motorsport BMW Kang Ling in 12th, Tim Becht is 13th, 14th Antonio Coimbra, 15th Miguel Ramos, 16th Bradley Ellis, 17th Andrea Montermini, 18th Valentin Pierberg, 19th Fernando Reis, and 20th place Andrei Lewandowski. And damage, I fear, for Alex West in the Luzic Racing Ferrari. I think he's probably picked up a puncture with the bodywork rubbing against that front left tyre. Indeed so, and he has got a fairly long trip back to the pits. As meanwhile, Rinat Salakov is on to terms here with Riccardo Agostini, and Salakov pushing hard in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Headlights ablaze in the background, meanwhile, from Marco Ciocci, who's just starting to begin to show his hand. Salakov all over the tail of the Italian. And this is proven to be a very good day so far for the Rinaldi Racing team. Their car's clearly really hooked up to the Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the weekend. "20 minutes into the race, the pit window opening in 8 minutes' time, which will start to turn things on its head a little bit. Got a 5-second penalty for Fernando Reis for causing a collision. Matt Griffin debriefing in the racing pits. So all sorts of considerations. At the front of the field, David Prell, 3 seconds clear of Michael Mack. Mack 3.6 seconds up the road from Richard Gonda, who's got a 1.6 seconds advantage over Giovanni Venturini. So that is top 4. The rest of the top 10 is still all fairly close contention, as Sadly, that appears as if it's afternoon over for the West and Rugolo car. And they have, so far this year, been going very, very well in the Pro-Am Championship and very regular podium finishers. So disappointment for them. Clearly a little bit of damage sustained just beyond a puncture as Toby Sowry starting to come under threat from Raffaele Giammaria. Renat Salikov doing much the same to Riccardo Agostini, and Agostini, who was great over a single lap in qualifying, has just maybe had the race pace go away from him a little bit in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. He's got a good proportion of the Kemmel Straight now between himself and teammate Giovanni Venturini, as Salikov contemplating a little bit of a look to the inside as they arrived into Les Combes. But Riccardo Agostini just sticking to the racing line. He's making Renat Salikov do all the hard work. Down into the Bruxelles hairpin. Oh, a little bit of understeer mid-apex for Riccardo Agostini. But again, what we've got to consider here is how the teams are using their tyre allocation through the weekend. So there'll be some of them as we get towards the end of this first stint who will be looking forward to bolting on a fresh set of tyres at the pit stops. Others might be going deep in this phase of the race on slightly newer rubber. So Salikov and Agostini, as they battle though, they're in the 2-minute 20-second bracket. They are now being caught a little bit by Alberto Di Folco. There is Di Folco with Marco Ciocci. And last time round, Alberto Di Folco was half a second quicker than Riccardo Agostini. So what was a 3.2-second gap between now down to under 3 seconds. So we might come down a little bit more. Marco Ciocci, meanwhile, unable really to make masses of progress with Alberto Di Folco, unlike Raffaele Giammaria, who is beginning to try and line up a move on Toby Sowry as the cars turn down into the camber at Blanchimont. Because these GT3 cars, they've got ABS systems on them, and the multi-mark racing adds a level of variety. But when you've got two very, very similar, bar some setup tweaks, Lamborghini Huracans, there's not masses to choose between the pair of them. And that time round, Riccardo Agostini and Renat Salikov are actually quicker than Alberto Di Folco, so the gap from 6th to 7th goes out, and Salikov really looking ever closer to making the move on Riccardo Agostini. Is it going to be this time as they blast out of Radion on to the Kemmel Straight? Just a couple of car lengths between them as they accelerate, headlights ablaze towards the braking zone. Salikov wanted to make the move, he couldn't quite do it. And the challenge here for Renat Salikov is that he is quicker than Riccardo Agostini, really, on all the parts of the circuit where he can't overtake the Italian. There's also really smart defensive drive from Agostini. He knows maybe he's not quite quick as fast as the car behind him, but if he focuses on the exit from the really key corners that lead into the passing places, there is not a huge amount that Renat Salikov can do to overcome that. The front of the race, meanwhile, David Perel has got Michael Mack coming back towards him. Yeah, from Perel to Mack, down to 2 seconds. Chigondra, Giovanni Venturini, just 1.7 seconds between them. 3 minutes away from the pit window opening here, the 5th race of the international. David Perel, the race leader. Michael Mack in 2nd. Richard Gondra is 3rd. Giovanni Venturini 6th between Riccardo Agostini and Renat Salikov. This is the fight for 7th and 8th between Alberto Di Folco and Marco Ciocci. In terms of the classes, David Perel leads the Pro-Am class. Renat Salikov currently heading the Am class. So when they come around next time, the pit window will be open. That is going to be the point where things start to get turned on their head. And we'll certainly expect to see the likes of Valentin Pierberg darting into the pit lane fairly early on to hand over to Tom Onslow-Cole. Others may well stay out a little bit later. You may also see a couple of chops and change just to try and get a little bit of track position. For example, Renat Salakov may well come in with the aim of feeding out into some clear air. So here's the race leader, David Perel. 1.7 seconds his advantage over Mikael Mak. So Mak has reeled in the South African a little bit over the past couple of laps. Again, Salakov closing up to Riccardo Agostini. That last lap was 2 minutes 20.5 for Agostini. It was a 2 minutes 20.0 for Alberto Di Folco. So Di Folco, the black Lamborghini Huracan just behind them, is, things being equal, really in the middle. And Agostini this time really does run wide through the Bruxelles hairpin, but again, Salakov can't quite take advantage. He looks to the inside, that left-hander. That would have been very brave. And Agostini just able to defend it. Really entertaining scrap between the pair of them. Renat Salakov driving with a great level of maturity. There's been a couple of occasions where it would have been very tempting to go for a little bit of a lunge, but he's just kept a level head and is still just trying to force that error from Agostini that makes the overtaking manoeuvre more or less a done deal. Kicks up a little bit of dust on the exit of Fania as they head towards the Corb Pool Frere. And now Salakov asking questions at each and every turn through Stavolo. And this is where Agostini has to get on the throttle as early as he dares. It's a long run, a couple of kilometres almost, back to the next braking point as they arrive into the bus stop chicane. Before that, they've got Blanchimont to navigate. Both drivers feet flat to the accelerator, and now Salakov looking to look to the inside. He's going to go for the move. Renat Salakov to the inside, Riccardo Agostini, but he overcooks it, goes in a bit too hard, and he will probably have to give that position back to Riccardo Agostini. I'll suggest the pit window is open and Marco Ciocci is in immediately. Salakov doesn't feel particularly inclined to give the position back to Riccardo Agostini. I bet the call will come over the radio that says he really needs to. But it's a case of where do you do so without unduly compromising your track position. So Matt Griffin is in, so's Andres Saravia and Tim Verbeek. So Teo Marti Motorsport team, Saravia to a halt. Fran Areda will take over. And down the Kemmel Straight. That is where Salakov gives the position back to Riccardo Agostini, but all the while, in the background, Alberto Di Folco is latching himself into this battle, so it's going to be the two Lamborghinis sandwiching the Ferrari as they run downhill towards the Bruxelles hairpin. This, to remind you, is the fight for 5th, 6th and 7th. The race leaders, David Perel, Mikael Mak, Richard Gonda and Giovanni Venturini, now the best part of 10 seconds or so up the road ahead of this fight. And that gives the leading quartet a really nice buffer post pit stops. Daniele Diamato takes over from Andrea Montermini. Norris Racing mechanics fill up the Ferrari. So a couple of pit stops being completed early on. Also Fabrizio Cristoni taking over from Miguel Ramos and Konstantin Kalko in for Miro Konopka in the ARC Bratislava Lamborghini Huracan. Marcio Basso and Thiago Marquez also changing places. So the pit lane, as we would have expected, very busy at the first half of the pit window. Also get busy again towards the second half of the pit window. Now, when will Renat Salakov come in? That is a question, because there's certainly a case to be made for both Agostini and Salakov to peel into the pits as Daniele Diamato accelerates out of the pits through the very tight version of the La Source hairpin. There's also in this Mikael Mak to hand over to Alessandro Pierre Guidi. So the Luzic Racing team will complete their pit stop early on, and yet Riccardo Agostini has ducked into the pit lane. So Rick Breukers takes over from Agostini. Very rapid and experienced Alessandro Pierre Guidi gets strapped into the Luzic Racing Ferrari, the reigning World Endurance Championship LM GTE Pro champion, Alessandro Pierre Guidi. It really is an all-star lineup opposite racing Ferrari team, Valentin Pierberg, the SPS Automotive Mercedes, to pass over to Tom Onslow-Cole. And the Pro-Am race is thoroughly unpredictable at the moment because the field has really spread over the first half of the race, but we've got some very, very rapid drivers, Tom Onslow-Cole included, who'll be taking over the second half of the race. Pierberg comes to his marks. So here is Richard Gonda, now elevated to second place, and we've not seen much of the Senkia BMW, but Richard Gonda and Joel Eriksson, very strong driver combination. They have got success seconds in the pits that potentially work in their favour here. So this is a car that could certainly be in the hunt for the victory a little bit later on. Likewise, the car behind it, Giovanni Venturini and Jerome Mull. So power down for Richard Gonda out of Stavelot on towards Blanchimont. Meanwhile, flash of the headlights from David Perel. He catches on terms with Daniele Diamato. Diamato, of course, who's had his pit stop in the RS Racing Ferrari, emerging into the fray. Perel, who is locked into a groove now, the race leader. And that last lap, though, for David Perel, 2 minutes 19.6. Not quite as quick as his previous effort. And Perel still with the fast lap of the race, to his credit, 2 minutes 18.9 that he set on the fifth lap of the race. The only driver in the field who's got beneath the 2 minute 19 second bracket. So approaching half race distance here in Spa-Francorchamps. Really intriguing race underway. The first half of the race, there's been some dicey, but there's also been a lot of shadow boxing. Just trying to get the right track position as Guido Liberati will take over from Kang Ling in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan. The Raton Racing driver combination from last year reunited. Also into the pit lane now comes Fernando Reis to pass over to Damiano Fioravanti. Combination fourth in the championship coming into this afternoon's race. And after the early adventures for Fernando Reis, entanglement with Andrea Montermini, it's going to be a little bit of recovery drive for the pairing thereafter. Oh, and a problem for Rinat Salakov, and Salakov has hit trouble. And is that coming out of the pits that he has lost the power in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari? So the AM class leader, Rinat Salakov, in all manner of bother, a real disappointment for him. Or is that in the way into, well, it's certainly on the run down out of La Source, but he hadn't peeled into the pit lane at that point. So that may be some sort of mechanical issue that has befallen the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Meanwhile, fast lap of the race goes to Fran Rueda, 2 minutes 17.6. That is a phenomenal lap from Fran Rueda. Also flying is Alessandro Pierguidi, who has got Rick Breukers on his tail. So in terms of post-pit stop track position, that is good news for Pierguidi. That's one fewer car for the Italian to concern himself with. Wolfgang Reep also flying at 2 minutes 18.8. So he's taken over the wheel of the Aston Martin Brussels car. So here is Rinat Salakov, and that is just before Eau Rouge, and that is a great pity for the Rinaldi Racing driver as he pulls off the road to a place of safety. Giovanni Venturini and Jerome Mull switching places in the Imperiale Racing garage. Also in is Richard Gonda to pass over to Joel Eriksson. So many of the front runners completing their pit stops as Onslow-Cole has emerged right behind Damiano Fioravanti. He's got Fabrizio Crostani behind him. And of those that have pitted, it's Alessandro Pierguidi who is the foremost, with then Rick Breukers just behind him. Matt Griffin also potentially playing himself into contention as well in the Luzic Racing Ferrari. Fran Roeder and Wolfgang Rieck both looking to carve up through the field. And then behind them, it's this train, Fioravanti, Onslow, Cole and Crestani. But Onslow, Cole and Crestani with an eye towards the Pro-Am class. Because certainly some of the AM drivers who will be taking over for the second half of the race, Onslow, Cole and Crestani will be several seconds a lap quicker than them. Therefore, we'll be hoping to chase them down. So out of the pit lane has come Jerome Mull. Now, what has happened to the Senkia BMW? Because Joel Eriksson only emerging from the pit lane now in the car that he's taken over from Richard Gonda. So that feels like that was a pretty lengthy pit stop for BMW. Any coverage of the pit stop, but Joel Eriksson is emerging into the fray a long, long way back from where we'd have expected him to be. Joel Eriksson, so of those that have pitted, Eriksson is in 5th position because it's Jerome Mull who is effectively the race leader in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. So that is odd seconds, at least that Eriksson has lost. Meanwhile, Onslow Cole to the inside of Damiano Fioravanti. Attempting to anyway. Fioravanti trying to fight it, just about they give each other racing room. Fioravanti's going to lose out here as well to Fabrizio Crestani. So Alberto Di Fulvio into the pit lane to hand over to and with then Rick Breukers in pursuit. So it's the two Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans sandwiching the Luzic Racing Ferrari. Vadim Koge, we'd expect, will emerge ahead of this group of cars. But probably wouldn't be too long before it got reeled in. So the Imperiale Lamborghini Huracans, they, in qualifying, they never quite looked like they were in the hunt for pole position, but were deceptively quick, both qualifying well up the order. And now this is going to be a battle between two of the great Italian marques. Rick Breukers picks up the throttle, coming out of Les Combes, trying to latch onto terms with Alessandro Pierguidi. As far as I can work out from the various camera angles, if anything, Pierguidi in 2nd position has driven away from Breukers a little bit. And here is the race leader, David Prell, still behind Daniele Diamato. But crucially for Prell, lapping at a pace that is comparable to many of his rivals. It's coming up to a fair degree of traffic. The pit window shuts when there are 28 minutes left on the clock, and the Rinaldi Racing team are cutting this pretty fine, I would suggest. As meanwhile, manoeuvrings up ahead, and Joel Eriksson to the inside of Jiatong Liang. He's now up behind Eduardo Liberati, and Eriksson trying to make the manoeuvre on the way into Fagna. Senkia Motorsport BMW, Antonio Coimbra and Luis Silva switch places. Giuseppe Cipriani's taken over from Toby Sowry. Oliver Wilkinson has taken over from Bradley Ellis. But David Prell, the race leader, I just wonder if he's gone on a lap too long, because the pit window closes when there are 28 minutes left on the clock. So here is another look as Liberati goes to the inside at Liang, makes the move stick. Jiatong Liang pushed out a little bit wide, and Joel Eriksson able to dart past as well. So here is David Prell behind Daniele Diamato. Oh, Diamato runs wide. Oh, he kicks up some dust in the RS Racing Ferrari. Just about stays out of trouble now. Prell is going to have cut this by the finest of fine margins for the Rinaldi Racing team. As there is Matt Griffin to the inside of Jiatong Liang. So Griffin goes up into 10th position. And Griffin, his next target is Eduardo Liberati. Here's another look at that manoeuvre from Daniele Diamato. And David Prell has snuck into the pits can confirm, with 2 seconds left of the pit window being open. So now Vadim Koge will take over. And Koge, unlikely to be able to match the sort of pace that Perel's been running, is going to potentially inherit at least the chance of a Pro-Am podium. So now the team get to work. So Joel Eriksson has now cleared Edoardo Liberati. His next target is Giuseppe Cipriani, and Eriksson absolutely flying. But so is Alessandro Pierguidi. Pierguidi has just done a 1 minute 17.99, 2 minutes 17.996. Not quite the fastest lap of the race, but it was 1.2 seconds quicker than Jerome Merle ahead of him. So the battle for the lead of the race is going to come alive before too long, as Eriksson up behind Giuseppe Cipriani. Giuseppe Cipriani, dare I suggest, his racing career actually started before Joel Eriksson was born. So he's got plenty of experience, as here is the battle for the lead of the race, and Jerome Merle with Alessandro Pierguidi in pursuit. Vadim Koge yet to emerge from the pits in the Rinaldi racing car. So unless he appears in shot now, Jerome Merle is the race leader. Alessandro Pierguidi second, with then Rick Breukers up into third. So what can Pierguidi do about Jerome Merle? In terms of the championship, Mack and Pierguidi, they could afford to take the points for second today. It's not really going to hurt their challenge too much. So Vadim Koge has emerged from the pit lane now. And Koge, after all of that, may not even emerge from the pits in the lead of the Pro-Am class. Here indeed is Vadim Koge. He's just behind Joel Eriksson. Behind, look at that scrap, Matt Griffin alongside Edoardo Liberati, Giuseppe Cipriani part of it as well. So we've got a fascinating series of battles to unfold. Joel Eriksson is 14 seconds back from Rick Breukers in third, and in clear air, first time in clear air for Joel Eriksson, was immediately 6/10 quicker than Rick Breukers, but that's a fair old chunk of time to make up. And now the battle between Giuseppe Cipriani, who is pursuing Vadim Koge for Pro-Am class honours. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Jiatong Liang. There is Liang, third in the Pro-Am class. Oliver Wilkinson, Thomas Locol and Fabrizio Crestani all in pursuit. This is going to be really entertaining. Another stage of the race in the AM class. Luis Silva line up a similar manoeuvre on Giuseppe Cipriani, and Rueda is going to go either side of Cipriani, and Griffin goes one side, Rueda to the other. Brilliant move from both of them. Oh, and Liberati tries to make it 3 in one corner. He can't quite do it. And immediately now Griffin onto terms with Vadim Koge as they arrive into La Source. Koge still leading the Pro-Am class as Liberati to the inside of Cipriani. Edoardo Liberati had to jump pretty steeply onto the brakes as this gaggle of cars runs downhill towards Eau Rouge. Meanwhile, here is the fight at the front of the field, and Alessandro Pierguidi has caught right up to Jerome Merle, and with 23.5 minutes to go, you don't know where to look. There's the fight for the lead. There is the fight that's going on behind. Here it is then, coming along the Kemmel Straight. Griffin and Rueda moving around Vadim Koge. That promotes Matt Griffin to 5th position. Fran Rueda up into 6th. And then Koge will just try and keep Giuseppe Cipriani behind him and retain the lead of the Pro-Am class as they run down towards the Bruxelles hairpin. There is Cipriani in the black and blue car behind the green Ferrari. But in the Pro-Am class, the men to watch for Oliver Wilkinson and Tom Onslow Cole, because they are on the march and reeling in Jiatong Liang and this group at the rate of 4 seconds a lap, and they're only 10 seconds back. So the Pro-Am victory isn't necessarily going to be any one of these cars. Koge navigates Pouhon without any drama. Eduardo Liberati still trying to look to find a way past Giuseppe Cipriani. Now this was the moment where Giuseppe Cipriani got to emulate Riccardo Zonta. That move happened elsewhere, of course, at Spa on the run towards Les Combes, but sandwiched between the quicker cars. So now Griffin and Rueda, they are sending off in pursuit of Joel Eriksson, who is 9 seconds up the road. Eriksson, meanwhile, is lapping at a rate of about a second a lap quicker than Rick Breukers and doing what he can to close that gap down. And Rueda, well, he wants to try and take some points off of Matt Griffin here, but this is partly why Griffin and Chiocci are here this weekend, just to make sure that Michael Mack retains that championship lead, doesn't concede too many points into the mix either, as Courget just running a little bit wide on the exit of Radion and being overhauled. Now here's the challenge for the lead as Pierre Guidi draws alongside Jerome Mull. Mull looks to just about retain the lead, sticks to his guns to the inside line, and now this fight for victory is well and truly alive. Alessandro Pierre Guidi's got some time to play with here. Likewise, can Jerome Mull withstand the pressure of Pierre Guidi? Pierre Guidi, world champion, the World Endurance Championship. Jerome Mull, racing last year in IMSA and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo in North America. Really going to have his work cut out, particularly as this is going to be a 9 or 10 lap scrap. Griffin and Rueda also running nose to tail. They are in the fight for 5th and 6th. Down through the Bruxelles hairpin. Mac's 3rd win of the campaign as Jerome Mull takes that tight defensive line into La Source, and he's just going to have to make Alessandro Pierre Guidi really work for it as the pair of them plunge downhill towards Eau Rouge. Right foot absolutely applied to the throttle, carrying as much momentum as possible up out of Radion, but again Pierre Guidi's got the run on Jerome Mull, and Mull's going to have to cover the inside line and hope the Ferrari doesn't slingshot him. There's not quite a Ferrari's width to the inside line, but Pierre Guidi leaving it late. The Lamborghini punches the hole through the air. Pierre Guidi looks to the outside, Jerome Mull tries to edge him out, but Alessandro Pierre Guidi makes the move around the outside, takes the lead of the race. The finest of margins, but Pierre Guidi goes through and now leads the way. He will try and break clear. Applause in the Luzit Racing Garage. Brilliant manoeuvre from Alessandro Pierre Guidi, and that is why he is one of the very, very best in the game. Didn't take any unnecessary risks. And now that he's through past Jerome Mull, can he break away in the Pro-Am class? It's Cipriani from Courget and Wilkinson. It's the battle for 5th. Rick Breukers, meanwhile, in 3rd place. It's being caught rapidly by Joel Eriksson, but Eriksson is still 12.5 seconds back. Been running very the pace. Fran Rueda in the BMW looking every which way to overhaul Matt Griffin. The pair of them making no inroads into the 4th. Is far too canny to fall for that sort of trick. So the pair of them pick up the pace, accelerating through into the 23rd lap of the race. So the order is Alessandro Pierre Guidi from Jerome Mull, then Rick Breukers, Joel Eriksson in 4th, Matt Griffin in 5th, just from Fran Rueda. Eduardo Liberati is in 7th. Wolfgang Riep in 8th in the Aston Martin Brussels car. Giuseppe Cipriani 9th, leads the Pro-Am class, but just 0.9 danger. Right, once more, Rueda looking to draw alongside Matt Griffin. Griffin exactly as he needs to. He's got very hard work, Fran Rueda, because the points that Rueda could just nab, the extra place, that could all become very important late on in the season. This time Griffin Doesn't run out quite as wide through the Bruxelles hairpin. So they run down towards Pouon and then into double left-hander. The challenge being that Matt Griffin is one of the best in the game, and he's not going to leave too many glints of light. GT3 victory. Ultima Motorsport. The snatch. The SPS Ultimo, certainly for the running to the inside line. Cristani looks to the outside, will then try for the undercut on the exit of La Source. That's exactly what he does, and moves up to third in the Pro-Am class. And Cristani, his next target is now Oliver Wilkinson. Wilkinson not too far up the road either. 11.5 minutes to go. As Daniele Diamato attempts to light the move on Giuseppe Cipriani, and Diamato desperately close as they come onto the Kemmel straight. They then give themselves a car's width or so between each other, as it's the drag race down to the braking zone. Suggests the battle of the brakes will be claimed by Diamato. Indeed it is. So Daniele Diamato up into 12th place, and the tyres scream as Diamato looks to get on the power fractionally early. So in the Pro-Am class, Onslow Colt 4.4. So Oliver Wilkinson, his first season of international competition, is going to really have to work, as here is our race leader, Alessandro Pierguidi. Headlights ablaze in the Luzic Racing Ferrari. Make sure there is absolutely no space to try and sneak past for Fabrizio Cristani. Then accelerating on his way out of Stavelot on towards Blanchimont. Meanwhile, Stefano Constantini. Oh, and the door opens on the Lamborghini Huracan. Low-tech air conditioning. He may have to peel in and get that tape down, as Diamato has a bit of a moment on the exit of Blanchimont. Fabrizio Cristani still right with only Wilkinson. There's Miguel Ramos. Thumbs up from Miguel. He's enjoying this, because there's a slug of points and another pot at the end of the rainbow. Daniele Diamato, meanwhile, has picked up a 5-second penalty for track limits. We've got a car in trouble over at turn 15. Try and pick up who that is. I think it could be Konstantin Kalko. Well, we'll see, as Cristani's got a really good run on Wilkinson this time. Wilkinson has to cover the inside line as Cristani bobs and weaves behind him. And Wilkinson, he's going to brake late. Cristani tries to turn across him. There's absolutely no way through there for Cristani, who is going to rejoin. He's going to have to give the place to Ollie Wilkinson. And this is going to break. Oh, Wilkinson repays the favour once, twice. Not quite 3 times a punch-up, but that was aggressive stuff. And Daniele Diamato says, I fancy some of this. So he darts between Cristani and Wilkinson. And oh, most brilliant move from Diamato, who squeezes Wilkinson out wide. And now Cristani makes the move as Wilkinson rejoins as they come out the left-hander. And Daniele Diamato is ever spectacular. And once more, great entertainment. And that gives the opening to Fabrizio Cristani to take the position. Here is another look how it all unfolded. And Cristani, well, there was no way he was going to be able to drive through the Audi, so they had to concede to each other. Wilkinson said, "Thank you very much, Fabrizio. That's what it feels like." That pushed Cristani back. It meant Diamato could jink to the inside. That's how it looked from Daniele Diamato's perspective. The Italian not really fazed by it at all, just waiting for the opportunity. All of this is of absolutely no concern whatsoever to Alessandro Pierguidi, who continues to lead the way. 4.3 seconds up the road ahead of Jerome Mull. But this is going to be a handy hatful of points for two of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini pairings. Jerome Merle and Giovanni Venturini for second, Rick Breukers and Riccardo Agostini for third. Although Joel Eriksson is still continuing to reel in Rick Breukers with some rapidity, but I think he's just going to run out of time. The incident between Ollie Wilkinson and Fabrizio Crestani is, of course, currently under investigation. Well, it just felt like hard racing as Jerome Merle has done a good job of more or less staying with Alessandro Pierguidi, but you just wonder how much more Pierguidi got in his back pocket if he'd really needed it. And they are accelerating out of Stavelot on towards Blanchimont. This to start the penultimate lap of the race in a few moments' time. Here is Alessandro Pierguidi into the chicane. So it should be a 30-lap race by the time that we have had the clock tick down to 0, taken the checkered flag. And this is where it all starts to get a little bit nerve-wracking in the pit boxes. They're just listening to every beat of the engine, making sure that the car's performing exactly as they should. And it certainly feels as if it's the case at the moment. There is Rick Breukers then in third place, and in the background Joel Eriksson, so the Senkia BMW, which that what appeared to be a very lengthy pit stop mid-race, now 7.4 seconds adrift of Rick Breukers, but with a few more laps Eriksson would possibly have got to terms, but he's going to run out of time and laps, although Breukers continuing to push hard, riding the curbs at the top of Radion. Then along the Kemmel Straight on the brakes into Les Combes. In fifth place, it's Fran Rueda. Sixth, then Matt Griffin, and Griffin now 3 seconds back from Rueda. Seventh place, Eduardo Liberati, so an impressive performance for the Vincenzo Spiri Racing Lamborghini. Wolfgang Riep is in eighth in the Aston Martin Brussels car. Tom Onslow Cole leading the Pro-Am class in ninth overall from Daniele Diamato. Fabrizio Crestani second in the Pro-Am class from Oliver Wilkinson, third in class. And meanwhile, more going on behind. This is Jiatong Liang doing battle. Oh, and it's Luis Silva in trouble. And Silva just about keeps it out of the barriers over at Fagnes, but he was leading the AM class. But Giulio Bonlenghi has now taken over the lead of the AM class as Luis Silva rejoins the fray. Great pity there for Luis Silva. Here's Joel Eriksson, Senkia BMW. And he and Richard Gonda are surely going to be going into tomorrow's race as potential favourites for the victory. Both of them setting really impressive pace throughout the course of the afternoon. And Eriksson is in a pretty select club of being able to consistently lap in the low 2-minute 19-second bracket. Into the final lap of the race for Alessandro Pierguidi. He, Mikael Mack, again, they played the long game in the Luzic Racing Ferrari. They allowed David Perel to lead early on. They knew that that car would possibly fade later on in the race. That's exactly what's happened. And then Pierguidi having to overcome the 15 seconds in additional time in the pits, making that on-track pass on Jerome Merle, but it has worked out in their favour. Just about 6 kilometres of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit to go. Through Les Combes for the final time. Accelerating in pursuit of Konstantin Kalko. Kalko is going to finish off the AM class podium with Julio Borlenghi. Andre Lewandowski looking set to win the AM class. After that moment for Luis Silva at Fagnes. On towards Pouhon for the final time, and at last the order in the race is relatively settled, although Giuseppe Cipriani has hit trouble somewhere. in the Daiko Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan. Cipriani has not come through the second sector, and here's why. Cipriani pulling off the road, and that's a great pity for he and Toby Sari, because they've been showing very, very strongly. Alessandro Pierguidi accelerating out of Stavelot for the final time towards Blanchimont. It's been a really impressive performance for he and Mikkel Mack. It is a performance that is going to consolidate Mikkel Mack's lead at the top of the standings, taking points off all of their main rivals once more. It's into the final chicane. It's going to be a third victory of the season for the Luzik Racing Ferrari team. Mikkel Mack and Alessandro Pierguidi take the checkered flag in Spa-Francorchamps, winning the first race of the weekend. Second place to Imperiale Racing, Jerome Mull and Giovanni Venturini, with, in third place, it is going to be Rick Breukers and Riccardo Agostini. So two of the Imperiale Lamborghini Huracans on the podium, just ahead of the Senkia BMW of Joel Eriksson and Richard Gonda, who finish in fourth position. Fifth then to Teo Martin Motorsport, Fran Rueda, Andres Saravia. And but for that delay with the collision which eliminated their teammate, they may have been in the hunt for the podium. As it is, fifth place and a solid haul of points, with Matt Griffin and Marco Giocci taking sixth position. Meanwhile, late on, Wolfgang Reep and Eduardo Liberati doing battle, and it's Eduardo Liberati who takes seventh for Vincenzo Spiri Racing, ahead of Wolfgang Reep. But then with adjusted times, it switches back in favour of Reep, with Tom Onslow-Cole and Valentin Pierberg taking victory in the Pro-Am class. So already into the winner's circle, Alessandro Pierguidi, flanked by the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans. The very happy Pierguidi hoists himself from the cockpit. Very much a case of job done. And he goes to congratulate Jerome Mull. That was a great scrap between the pair of them. Very clean and fair. And this, the moment of triumph for Alessandro Pierguidi. The checker flag. Spa-Francorchamps. Very happy team on the pit wall. Likewise for Imperiale Racing. Job done. Hot work for all the drivers through the field. The AM class, Julio Borlengo and Andre Lewandowski have claimed that with 16th overall as they've just come through. So let's have a look then at the provisional classification. Victory for Pierguidi and Mack from Giovanni Venturini and Jerome Mull, then Riccardo Agostini and Rick Breukers. Senkia Motorsport, Richard Gonda and Joel Eriksson, a solid fourth, and Fran Rueda and Andres Saravia, who also got fastest lap. Marco Ciocci, Matt Griffin in sixth. Tom Onslow-Cole and Valentin Pierberg, ninth overall, and the Pro-Am win from second in class, Fabrizio Crestani and Miguel Ramos. The Pro-Am podium completed by Ollie Wilkinson and Bradley Ellis in the Optima Motorsport Audi, just behind Daniele Diamato and Andrea Montermini. Jiatong Liang and Raffaele Gianmaria in 13th from Di Falco and Constantini. Giulio Borlenghi and Andre Lewandowski then AM honours Vincenzo Spiri Racing, ahead of Thiago Marquez and Marcio Basso, Luis Silva, Antonio Coimbra. Unfortunately, we had a few casualties along the way, but let's hope that they will be out again tomorrow. So in terms of the championship then, Mikkel Mack effectively 22 points clear of his nearest rivals, Andres Saravia and Fran Rueda. But still a lot of racing to go. We're only 5 races into the season. But for now, it's all smiles for Luzik Racing.
Michael Mack, Alessandro Pierguidi, you did it again, third time this year, and it was quite a lively race. Huh?
Yeah, in the beginning it was very tight in the start, but yeah, I tried to do my best to just carrying the whole car to Alex, and he did an amazing job, and now we're standing here as a winner.
Alessandro, what a fantastic overtake for the lead we saw.
Yes, it was quite nice. I enjoyed it, so I enjoy all the race, all the fight. Ludwig Racing did a perfect job with the car, with the Ferrari 488, and it was amazing. And I love this track. So, and it's third in a row for me this year, so it's great. Cannot ask more. And also Michael did an incredible job in the first part, create a gap. So I was already in front so many cars after the handicap we had in the pit stop. So it's a great job for us.
And Michael, this is all good for the championship.
Yeah, for sure. Like Alex said, that the team did an amazing job for us, so very happy that we can take the big one today.
No, thank you guys. Podium now, well done.
So as the lights went out, it was David Perel from pole position in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari who led the way just about as they charged towards La Source for the first time. Michael Mack trying to challenge, but eventually having to file through in second position as behind Andrea Montermini and Fernando Reis came together. Unfortunately, neither car damaged, but both substantially delayed. There's also drama when Renat Salikov tagged Ollie Wilkinson, but it was Lorenzo Mera de Viega who was the completely innocent victim, retiring after sustaining damage to the front of the BMW. Meanwhile, Andrea Montermini was busy charging up through the field after the early spin as Alex West and Marcello Hahn came together. Unfortunately, that put West out of the race. Meanwhile, Valentin Pierberg and Fernando Reis were busy doing battle as well. Post pit stops, there was some absolutely brilliant action with Joel Eriksson siving his way through the field, as were Matt Griffin and Fran Rueda going every which way around Giuseppe Cipriani. Valiant Kogge also rapidly fell victim to the charging Ferrari and BMW. At the front of the field, though, Jerome Mull was being pursued by Alessandro Pierguidi, and this was the move that decided the race around the outside for the first part of Le Comet, gave Pierguidi the inside for the second phase. Meanwhile, the Pro-Am podium, it got a little bit intimate at times to sort out who was going to finish in second and third position. Eventually decided in favour of Fabrizio Crestani. For Alessandro Pierguidi and Michael Mack, it was their third victory of the season, and it has given Mack a comfortable lead at the top of the championship standings. Two of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans rounding out the podium. But for Lusit Racing, very much a case of job done. So cheers for Riccardo Agostini and Rick Breukers onto the third step of the rostrum for Imperiale Racing. Jerome Mull and Giovanni Venturini doing a grand job en route to second place. Alessandro Pierguidi and Michael Mack as a combination this year, undefeated in the International GTOpen. And Mikko Luzik for Luzik Racing on to the podium. So the Luzik Racing team celebrating in Spa-Francorchamps. The weekend, though, only half done, and we are back in action with the green flag at 2:25 tomorrow afternoon for the second race of the weekend for the International GTOpen. That's the slightly shorter 60-minute race, so do make sure that you join us for that one. In the meantime, 6 very happy drivers on the podium. Very solid afternoon's work for them. the championship battle beginning to come together very nicely. It's going to need, though, a few days where they take the points off Michael Mack. Today has not been one of them. Luzit Racing, Michael Mack and Alessandro Pierguidi on the top step of the rostrum in Spa. It's been a super afternoon's racing as the drivers pose for photos and then actually behave in terms of posing for the photos. They will then make merry with the bubbly, which means that it's time to say thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow as the International GT Open season continues. To the Pro-Am podium with third place to Bradley Ellis and Ollie Wilkinson. Runners-up, Miguel Ramos and Fabrizio Crestani. And Pro-Am victory once more to Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg, the SPS Automotive Mercedes pairing, again triumphing in the Pro-Am class. Superb racing throughout the Pro-Am class once more, particularly that superb scrap for second place in the latter stage of the race between Ollie Wilkinson and Fabrizio Crestani. But Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierberg, they were well positioned mid-race. Onslow Cole charged through in the latter stages. In the end, they take the class win by just over 5.5 seconds. Ramos and Crestani racking up more points, and they will retain the lead of the Pro-Am class going into tomorrow's race. Drivers in need then of a dry cleaner that works late hours in the Spa area. So they are thoroughly soaked with the bubbly.
Congratulations, Guy.
And we will turn our attention to the AM. Always very